In the modern rap culture, some cities and their rap scenes are almost synonymous with their gang culture. The most famous example, of course, being Chicago, the birthplace of drill music that single-handedly brought gangs back to the forefront of the broader rap scene since the 90s gangster rap boom. Within the Chicago rap scene, the specific gang affiliations and rivalries of the artists are as big a part of the scene as the music itself. Atlanta, on the other hand, is almost the polar opposite of Chicago in this sense, or at least it used to be. Atlanta has become known as the Black Hollywood, the capital of modern rap culture, and the birthplace of the most prevalent subgenre of rap for about 2 decades now. I'm of course talking about trap music. But while the drug dealer focused trap music would also bring some notoriety to the gangs of Atlanta, this would begin in a much more generic sense. Because while it wasn't exactly a secret that the early pioneers of trap like Gucci Mane, Waka Flocka Flame, T.I. and Young Jeezy might have had street affiliations, their exact gang ties and rivalries were never really a topic of much discussion in the lyrics or amongst fans. Moreover, Atlanta's street gang history is relatively short and simple compared to many of the other major rap cities of America like New York and Los Angeles. While these cities were already struggling with out-of-control gang wars and record-breaking murder rates brought by the 80s and 90s crack epidemic, Atlanta was only just beginning to experience rising tensions, with the newspapers at the time reporting how Atlanta was in the very early stages of gang evolution, with the few gangs existing still lacking any identifying symbols, colors, and other markers that the gangs in LA, NY, and Chicago were rocking. Nor did the Atlanta gangs have much organizational structure, but they were still getting their hands on serious weapons and sparking fear into the community. But still, in 1988, law enforcement estimated there only to be about 5 gangs in Atlanta, which to be fair likely also says something about the tendency of police at the time to downplay the risk of gangs in the city, which had so far avoided much of the mayhem that was going on in many other major cities across the US. Some reporters would accuse Atlanta officials of pretending that gangs weren't a problem in the city and sweeping things under the rug, but later that year, the local papers would report how even the feds were now beginning to look into the gangs operating in Atlanta, with one gang name in particular being repeated often, the Miami Boys, a Miami-originating drug dealing crew who were attempting to expand beyond the borders of Florida. Coming into the 90s, the feds would finally admit that the gangs were in Atlanta for good, and while they were still mostly small in scale, they were evolving fast. The newspapers began to publish more in-depth looks at these gangs, showing how they had adopted the habits and even identities and symbols of major gangs from LA and Chicago, using graffiti to mark their territory and showcasing their allegiance with LA gangs like Crips, Bloods, and Pyrus, and Chicago gangs like Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords. However, the authorities considered these gangs to largely be wannabes who weren't actually connected with the real national blood gangs. This might have been true in the late 2000s, or it might have simply been wishful thinking, but by the mid-2010s, the newspapers would report how the national gangs had begun infiltrating Metro Atlanta at the start of the decade, and this infiltration has now arguably taken over the entire city. Because when it comes to modern Atlanta, there's only one gang that arguably controls the streets of Atlanta more than any other. That's the Bloods. However, the name the Bloods at this point is simply an umbrella term that refers to numerous gang sets that may or may not get along with each other. And while the Bloods originate from Los Angeles, in Atlanta, there are only a few blood sets that rep these original West Coast ties, with the Inglewood family, better known in Atlanta as the IF gang, perhaps being one of the most prominent examples. But to the contrary, the blood sets in Atlanta primarily have their roots in the East Coast, more specifically New York, where many blood gangs began forming during the 90s in the infamous Rikers Island prison, where black inmates were struggling to survive against the Hispanic inmates who at the time were much more unified and belonged to much larger and well-organized gangs. This eventually led to the formation of the so-called United Blood Nation, or UBN, which according to the authorities originally included 5 sets: the 1-8 Trey Gangsters, Money Murder, Valentine Gangster Bloods, G-Shine, and the 9 Trey Gangsters. These sets quickly began moving down the East Coast, primarily to push dope, eventually creating local branches of their sets in states like Virginia and North and South Carolina, eventually also Georgia, where most of the original 5 UBN sets now operate, including 1-8 Trey Gangsters, G-Shine, and the 9 Trey Gangsters, but especially Money Murder, which may currently be the single most influential gang in the metro Atlanta area. As the story goes, Money Murder, or SMM, was founded by a New York gangster named Peter Rolak, aka Pistol Pete, who hailed from the Soundview projects in the Bronx. However, like the overall Bloods moniker, Money Murder 2 is just an umbrella term for numerous smaller sets, or lines as they're called within SMM, with the authorities claiming that the dominant line in Georgia is currently known as 45 Worldwide, or simply 45WW, a group which further has several smaller lineups or cliques, such as KMB, Venom Line, Hot Wheel, X Line, and Frontline. These smaller factions largely act independently, but share certain common characteristics, like typically repping one of 2 colors, red or green, while sometimes referring to themselves with common nicknames Money Murder, like Murder Gang, Blazers, or BBO for Blazing Billy Only, Two Gun Gang, or Trendy. This last name perhaps explaining the extremes that some of the biggest rappers affiliated with Money Murder have taken unusual fashion choices, making it almost seem like the zestier the savage, the higher they'll climb on the gang's ladder. But the reality is, no matter how unusual you think Carti's clothes are, in the streets, he's respected, and the group that he rolls with are nothing to play with. Playboi Carti is allegedly affiliated with some of the small cliques or lineups under the Money Murder umbrella, most notably a set known as the Homicide Gang, as well as their very close ally called 800. Homicide Gang's origins are interestingly based on a record label that was also functioning as an alleged gang called DTE, or Duct Tape Entertainment. Founded around 2005 by the CEO of the label called Big Bank Black, or simply Big Bank, real name Rashad Halsey Sr., together with the rapper Ali Boy. This was following the arrest of Ali Boy and Big Bank for pistol and drug charges, which saw Ali Boy going to jail and Big Bank getting probation. Founded while Ali Boy was still in prison, they would start pushing Duct Tape following his release in October 2005.
But I had just got out of prison, and we were pushing the Duct Tape. And I say I got out of prison in 2000, at the end of 2005, October.
Ali Boy would explain to a humble soul on YouTube that the name Duct Tape was used interchangeably between their hood and the label.
Like, that was the whole thing with Duct Tape, period, all together. Like, we were looking at it as a label, but we still was just looking at it like, but this our hood, this our, you know what I mean? So when you say Duct Tape, we were down there saying our hood, you know what I'm saying?
DTE hailed from East Atlanta, aka Zone 6, more specifically a neighborhood called Edgewood, one of the many neighborhoods around downtown Atlanta that's experienced recent gentrification. Besides Ali Boy, perhaps the most notable artist on the label was the late rapper Trouble, and the label has been connected with contemporary rappers like Future and 21 Savage. These associations likely at least partly being due to their shared affiliation with the Money Murder, with both Future's Free Bands gang, aka FBG, and 21's Slaughter gang having confirmed ties and having many members that rep this set of the Bloods. Sometime during the mid-2010s, some of the younger kids connected to DTE began repping the Homicide gang. Originally also going by EH, or Extortion Homicide, during the mid-2010s, some of the earliest Homicide-affiliated rappers, like the rapper formerly known as Homicide Doody, later known as Problem Child 5, would perform under the Duct Tape Entertainment, being apparently hand-picked by Big Bank himself. Also, the 800 set, also known as 800 BBS, or 800 block back street, which literally hails from around the 800 block of Smith Street in the Pittsburgh neighborhood. This was an area where many of the Homicide members grew up, and the neighborhood has been affiliated with Duct Tape Entertainment for a long time, with a house there even formally showcasing art repping both 800 and DTE. And Big Bank would mention how he was pushing artists from this set in his interviews.
I got a whole crew. I'm still, bringing the next generation of this Duct Tape thing. I don't even want to call their names out, but it's a whole new crew coming. A whole 800 back street. We coming hard, like.
DTE was also close with other older sets from the Edgewood area, such as a set called the Runts, who were even included on the FBI's National Gang Threat Assessment in 2011. The name Runts is of course familiar to many fans of modern Atlanta rap due to the rapper Ola Runt, who's in fact part of the younger generation of the Runts. He actually used to rep DTE as well all the way back in 2010. Now, the younger generation of the Runts goes by the name Henchmen, with their other notable rappers being guys like Benji Bluebills, Woo the Savage, and 24 Left Eye, who has become a target of some pretty controversial rumors in recent times. Henchmen are notorious in Atlanta for being perhaps the most hated gang in the city, with little to no allies and many enemies. But regardless, Henchmen and Homicide Gang were seemingly close in the beginning, although they've had certain organizational differences. For example, Homicide Gang appears to be under the dominant Money Murder line in Georgia, the 45 Worldwide, whereas the Henchmen are under a different line called G20 or B20. There are also other blood gang alliances in Atlanta, with Homicide Gang being affiliated with the so-called 4L Alliance, which includes sets like Slaughter Gang, 1504 aka PDE, and Young Brew 4L, while the Henchmen rep another moniker called 5L. When the national blood gangs first began operating in the Atlanta region, there were relatively high levels of unity between these different factions. But while the gang membership has risen in the state of Georgia heavily, particularly during the past years, the gangs have also become increasingly splintered, with a confusing mix of small cliques and increasingly complex alliances and rivalries characterizing the current landscape. For reasons that we'll get into more later, a breakdown would also take place between the Homicide Gang and the Henchmen during the late 2010s. According to the Georgia law enforcement, the breakdown has also taken place amongst the higher up factions of Money Murder that these two sets are a part of, with the dominant 45 Worldwide line that Homicide Gang is a part of allegedly stating that the G20 line of the Henchmen is not recognized in the state. Likely related to the breakdown between these two sets, Homicide Gang would seemingly stop being active in the Edgewood area, instead moving down completely to the hood of the 800 set in the Pittsburgh neighborhood in Zone 3. Ever since Atlanta got rid of all of their large public housing projects, the gangs in Atlanta have also become less tied to one specific place, and instead, members of a single gang set can have presence in many different locations all over the metro Atlanta area, with law enforcement claiming that Homicide Gang actually has presence from East Atlanta and DeKalb County all the way to Clayton County. The same document reveals that the police have been investigating the Homicide Gang since the beginning of 2022, and it would also label Ola Runt as the most prominent member of the Henchmen, while perhaps somewhat surprisingly labeling Playboi Carti as one of the most prominent members of the Homicide Gang too. This might come as a surprise to some fans who only knew Carti for his baby voice raps and questionable fits, but in the eyes of law enforcement, Carti is a shot-calling and high-ranking blood. So, to truly understand how Carti managed managed to get to the very top of both Atlanta gang politics and the music scene, we need to go all the way back to the beginning. Not that much is known about Carti's early life gang connections, but the consensus amongst the fans appears to be that Carti was not heavily gang affiliated whilst he was growing up, and his old high school mate from the Creekside High that Carti attended for a period of time would later tell how Carti appeared to be from a fairly well-off family.
He always had the latest shoes, and I know his parents bought him, but like whoever his mom was, I'm pretty sure she up. She well taken care of. Like bro had I ain't gonna be the one to be like, oh, he wasn't hood or nothing like that. But all I'm saying is he wasn't doing bad, you know what I'm saying? Like he was fresh as hell. Whoever his mom was, or dad, they had some paper.
In his earliest songs, like the song 36 Villains from his 2012 mixtape Young Misfit, Carti would simply rep the south side of Atlanta without any references to a specific gang. But already back then, he was clearly well connected all over the city, making songs with other underground rappers from areas like East Atlanta, aka Zone 6. According to Carti himself, he would also get into quite a lot of trouble in Zone 6 in the early 2010s by hitting licks with his old friends like the rappers Man Savage and Fat Man Key.
My mom and dad, you know what I'm saying, they ain't go to college, but they ain't have me broke, you know what I'm saying? They weren't broke, you know what I mean? I ain't these, I jumped out the port, my mom and dad's in the slugs. I was like, man, I don't want to be out here. I was in the Zone 6, I'm on the 3, I'm in the 6 with Fat Man Key, Man Savage. He in licks, bro, like I ain't got fat, like I ain't got. Told me, I told him, man. So yeah. That's my OG.
There are also pictures from that time period posted by Man Savage that showed Carti toting guns, with Carti later reminiscing about these times in the 2020 song Punk Monk, rapping how he was riding around with Man and Key while toting a gun. Soon, Carti would also begin to make references in his music that appeared to be gang related. Carti would make his affiliations known in lyrics, repping the number 2900 in the song Heavy, a number that he would then begin to repeat on numerous tracks, including an unreleased but eventually leaked song literally titled 2900, where Carti raps how 2900 is his block and how he's got 20 ops and shoots up their block 29 times. In another leaked song known as Essential or Canary Diamonds, Carti even shouts out his 2900 block together with several other gang sets, including of course his good friend Uzi's 1600 block from the Francisville section in North Philly, with Carti and Uzi referencing their respective blocks in their rumored mixtape that never dropped titled 1629, but also the rapper Young Nudy's PDE set from Paradise East Apartments located in East Atlanta, and 21 Savage's Slaughter Gang, also known as 2100 Slaughter Gang, from the Glenwood Avenue and Glenwood Road area in East Atlanta, both of these sets later becoming part of the 4L alliance that Homicide Gang affiliates with. The connection between Carti and Slaughter Gang may be partly explained by Carti's alleged family connection to an older set called Black Mob from East Atlanta, who were in fact a precursor to the Slaughter Gang. However, despite Carti often repping the 2900 block in his music, there is a lot of mystery surrounding what the moniker actually means and where this supposed block is located. Some see 2900 as referring to the Highway 29, aka the Roosevelt Highway, which goes through Carti's old stomping grounds in the city of Fairburn, where his early schools like the Bear Creek Middle School and the Creekside High School are located, and where he used to live in a subdivision called the Oakley Township, according to his childhood friend.
Because I remember he lived in this subdivision called Oakley Township in Fairburn, and they had nice houses. I don't know which house he lived in, but I just remember he lived there.
The 2900 block then perhaps refers to the entire city of Fairburn.
I'm 2900 Southside.
Well, okay, so explain 2900, what that exactly means and where it came from.
Boom, so, you know what I'm saying? From the south side, you know what I'm saying? Like, in Atlanta, south side is like, it's like College Park. You got Clayco, you know what I'm saying? And then you got the small ones in between, Union City, Fairburn, you know what I'm saying? Flat Show, you know what I'm saying? And we just always like the Union City, like I grew up around the College Park, Union City, Fairburn area, you know what I'm saying? And now we would call it 2900 because like it was like different bars, 25, 20, you know what I'm saying?
But somewhat confusingly, besides seemingly repping Fairburn with 2900, Carti would also rep Zone 3 at the same time, despite Fairburn being far closer to Zone 4, as well as repping the city of Riverdale in Clayton County to the east of Fairburn, where he, according to himself, lived for a long period of time growing up.
From Atlanta, Georgia. And yo, before this rap, man, I was trying to stay out of trouble, ducking 12, you know? Same bro. From South Atlanta, Riverdale, man. Really is not too much you can explain. It's more like a place you just gotta get out of.
Carti has seemingly also been affiliated with at least one set from Riverdale, known as RSG, or Rich Slime Gang, who rep the East Coast Blood set 5'9 Brims, and are also known in the Atlanta rap scene due to rappers like Slimacito. The main takeaway here perhaps being that Carti has always been moving around and making gang connections all over Metro Atlanta. However, when it comes to the 2900 in particular, which Carti repped the most throughout his career, there are also old social media posts that seem to imply 2100 being a specific set from Fairburn, who were apparently beefing with another local set called Goon Squad back in the day, this beef being also connected to Carti's old high school, the Creekside High. And there's even some old posts seemingly implying that 2800 was in fact a blood set, a rumor that's been repeated by fans on Reddit. The following year, as Ian Connor would take over managing Carti, the duo would make their way to Los Angeles, where they would apparently link up with the Campanella Park Pyrus from Compton, this eventually even starting a rumor that they had actually blessed Carti and Ian into the Bloods.
Check it out. Yeah.
And it was around this time that Carti actually begun repping the Bloods in his music on a much more regular basis. He would even start making references to specific Atlanta Blood factions, like in the 2016 song Pressure with Rich the Kid, where he then raps that he's with Slime, this perhaps being a reference to the Riverdale-based Rich Slime Gang, or Young Thug's YSL, aka Young Slime Life, going from Cleveland Avenue in Zone 3. Yet Carti would also make sure to shout out his Crip homies, showing that once again he was extremely well connected with different gangs and hoods all over America. There was even a short period of time when Carti was seemingly heavily affiliated with the late Chicago rapper Fredo Santana's Front Street 061 set whilst hanging out with him in LA. However, in one of his most well-known songs, the 2017 Lil Uzi Vert collab Woke Up Like This from his self-titled mixtape, Carti makes clear that while he's affiliated with certain gangs like the Compton Pyrus, he's denied being a gangbanger himself. But after Carti would move to New York to chase his rap dream, eventually signing with the ASAP crew, he would also make some gang-related connections there too, like meeting the rapper Jim Jones from the legendary rap collective The Diplomats or Dipset. He's also the rapper to start using the moniker Vamp Life or Vampire Life, with Carti then commonly using the vamp term throughout his whole Lotta Red era, as well as more recently starting his own crew or movement called YVL or Young Vamp Life. However, around the same time when Carti was building his rap career in New York with the ASAP mob, he would also spend time in Atlanta recording music, his time there eventually leading him to meet a rapper called Lil One, through Lil One's girlfriend, a rapper known as Red Cold Hearted.
But we ended up meeting Playboi Carti through my girl, so he was already like from 2016, like we've been rocking with each other since like 2015, me and her, so he been around us since like 2016.
But Lil One wasn't just any random rapper, as his dad, or at least stepdad according to some Redditors, is none other than the Duct Tape Entertainment CEO, Big Bank, which is why Carti can be seen in some pictures wearing DTE merch and hanging with members of DTE, including Big Bank himself. Being part of the young DTE generation, Lil One is also affiliated with the 800 set and Homicide Gang, as he makes clear in his underrated 2019 banger titled 800, as well as another song called Homicide, dropped in 2021 with none other than Carti himself. Other 800 Homicide Gang members that Carti would become close with during this period are people like Big Sosa, who Carti would spend perhaps the most time with, the two doing everything together, from playing basketball and shooting dice to attending baseball games and hanging out in the hood. There's also the rapper Problem Child 5, who some Redditors claim to have been the one who actually stamped Carti into the gang, although this would have perhaps been more likely done by Lil One and Big Bank. Carti would also hang out with members like another rapper called R5 and a young'un called Lil Demon, who Carti would shout out in his 2020 song Stop Breathing. These lyrics also mentioning the rapper Bino, who is one half of a rapper duo together with another Homicide member called Michi, who Carti would eventually sign to his Opium record label under the group name Homicide Gang, in the process turning these hard-nosed gangsters into nocturnal vamp lifers surviving on a diet of lean, blood, and the latest Rick Owens fits, just like the King Vamp himself. Many have considered the relationship between Carti and the Homicide Gang, or 800, to be more like a symbiotic business relationship, where Carti benefits from these gangs bringing him street credibility that he formerly lacked.
DVDs weren't even out when they made them VHS. There's some different kind of bills out there. I got some of them in the house too.
Meanwhile, the Homicide Gang and 800 obviously benefit greatly from all the attention Carti can bring to their numerous rappers. Not to mention guys like Michi and Bino getting officially signed to Carti's Opium label and no doubt getting a bag for themselves. However, others seem to think that Carti is basically getting friendly extorted by these gangs who use him for clout while supposedly giving him protection, but arguably not having any real love for him as a person. But whatever the truth is, becoming part of a notorious gang in Atlanta does not come without its own hardships, and in recent years, Carti has certainly become familiar with the dark side of the street. streets. As mentioned, Homicide 800 used to be close with the Henchman gang, and there's numerous photos and videos showing their members together, with Henchman members like Ola Runt making appearances in the music videos for rappers like Lil One. While in the August 2019 music video for Ola Runt's early hit song Feel Like Goo Wop, he can be seen together with Big Bank and Lil One, while actually supporting an 800 shirt himself. Ola was seemingly cool with Carti himself around this time too, shouting him out on his social media. During a November 2019 Hood Rich radio interview, Big Bank would even shout out Ola as the #1 up-and-coming rapper to look out for in Atlanta.
Some of the rappers, maybe outside of your crew in Atlanta that you would want the world to pay attention to that you think might be next to represent the city?
Most definitely Ola Runt. Okay. He got my neighborhood.
Going hard, yep.
Ola, he going nuts right now.
However, soon after, things between Ola and Big Bank would deteriorate quickly, with rumors later circulating that this possibly had something to do with Ola refusing to sign with Bank's DTE label, as during early 2020, it looked like Ola was in fact trying to sign to Gucci Mane's 1017 Records, receiving an iced out chain from Mr. Zone 6 himself.
I was just thinking,
man. I gotta put it on.
Whatever the real reason, Ola would then attack Big Bank on social media, even posting the clip of Bank shouting him out on the radio, while accusing him of being two-faced and actually hating and lying on him behind the scenes. Big Bank would reply in the comments saying that they never tried to sign Ola, and that they instead tried to help him to get signed by numerous people without expecting anything in return, before dissing both Ola and his father. Big Bank was clearly in his feelings, posting also a long message on his own social media, once again dissing both Ola and his dad. Meanwhile, Ola would do far more than just type on social media, dropping a scathing diss track in April 2020 titled Mob Father, Big Bank's nickname in Atlanta being the Godfather. But he would diss both Big Bank personally, as well as sets like the Homicide Gang, claiming that Bank got ran out of Zone 6 and had to move to 800's hood in Zone 3, and the Homicide Gang was scared of the henchmen behind the scenes. Bank and Lil One would react to the song seeming unbothered, while clowning Ola back.
Look at it, you don't look at kids in the video. You ain't telling us.
Meanwhile, Homicide rapper Problem Child 5 would come out with a response diss towards Ola titled PP's Son, PP referring to Ola's father. Ola would keep dissing on social media, going live around the same time of Problem Child's song release and airing out both Bank and Problem Child 5, even taking shots at Carti, calling him a fashion blood who only pretends to gangbang to look cool without even knowing the inner codes of money murder.
Hey, and Problem Child, your daddy name Big O. Big O is a preacher. Y'all heard Big O is a preacher, man. Big O is a preacher and he's a chef. He cook food, no dope. Y'all heard me? My father cooked dope. Y'all heard me? Your father cooked food. You talking about? And then listen, Big Bank stuff your mama when she was like 14. And he was like in his 20s. So like you his stepchild. Do that no more, they just fashion blood. It be fashion banging, man. A lot of fashion blood, they want to dye their hair. They want to, you know what I'm saying? They just want to dye their hair or do shit like that, man. Be blood just to dye their hair red, man. They don't know shit about the set. No shit about the royal flush. No shit about the first 5 on the east. Shit about none of that.
But Problem Child would clap back, going live and giving a detailed story of Ola and other henchmen running during a shootout.
Hitchman! Oh my mama, I ain't never seen so many henchmen running at the funeral. I seen running. I seen little Left Eye. I swear to God, I seen Left Eye watching Ola get shot at, bro. I swear to God. Ola done went to the right. Left Eye was to the left. I said, oh hell no. Well, I'm following my brother.
Hey.
I'm following my dog.
Hey.
Huh?
That's my left eye to my, he ain't see that. He was looking to the right.
But while the beef was getting heated, Ola had some completely other problems to deal with, as he would get arrested at the famous Lenox Mall in Atlanta, with somebody filming the arrest while Ola would speak to the camera, calling Big Bank a snitch.
Man, Big Bank is the police too, man. Make sure you call that, man. Tell you folks Big Bank a rat, man. All these niggas telling on me, man. All y'all rats, man. Keep my name out your mouth, man. All y'all rats.
And Ola's problems with law enforcement wouldn't end there, because already the following month in June, he would be in trouble once again, this time crashing out in style, going live on Instagram while in the middle of a high-speed chase with the police in Monroe County. The Monroe County sheriff would later give an update, saying that they had caught Ola hiding in the woods after the chase, whilst also posting a picture of him in handcuffs. Unfortunately, things were about to get even worse for the Homicide gang, because later that month on the 28th of June, whilst Homicide and 800 members were hanging out at their usual location in the 800 block, something would go very wrong, and Carti's perhaps closest friend from the gang, Big Sosa, would end up being shot in the head around 10 PM that night. He would later pass away in the hospital, and Sosa's death would be a major shock for his set, with the rapper R5 even putting out a project titled Everything for Sosa. And Sosa's death would of course affect Carti, who would change his Twitter name to RIP Sosa, and would later give a heartfelt tribute to him during his 2021 Lollapalooza set, whilst also telling the audience that he was living a double life, and that when he wasn't rocking out shows as a rap superstar, he was, quote, in the streets for real.
You know, I lost my brother recently. His name was Sosa, and I really loved him so much, and y'all just, you know what I'm saying, we could talk about this another day. I just gotta understand, like, I mean, you know what I'm saying, I got two different lives, and when I'm not being King Vamp and not this other, I'm in the streets for real, so let's do it.
This speech leading to the performance of the song Die for Guy, where Carti raps how he's ready to die for his friends. Later in an interview with the Marvin magazine, Carti would explain how the later song Stop Breathing is actually another side of him that he doesn't even want his fans to see, seemingly implying that the song's aggressive message, where Carti screamed how all he's been able to think about after the death of Sosa is homicide, is too raw a look into his mind, which was seemingly being haunted by thoughts of violence and revenge. Lil One would reveal during his October 2024 interview with Dirty Glove Bastard Media how the song Homicide by him and Carti was another tribute for Sosa.
It's like, all this going on, Sosa pad, he called me like, bro, we gotta do one for Sosa. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got to.
Problem Child, who would claim to have been at the scene shortly before the incident that claimed Sosa's life, would also write a heartfelt message to him, saying how he was blaming himself for what happened for leaving Sosa on the scene without him. It's still not clear what exactly happened that led up to Sosa's death in his home turf, but there have been some wild rumors, some of them actually blaming Problem Child for allegedly backdooring Sosa and getting him killed. These rumors would get further amped up when Problem Child would first get booked in September 2020 for numerous very serious charges, before getting released in June 2021 and then getting booked again in September, this time having an insane rap sheet that listed 4 felony murders, with one of these murder charges being the murder of Sosa according to some Reddit sleuths. However, others have pointed out that the offense date for all of his crimes is listed as the 1st of October 2019, which would obviously rule out Sosa being one of the victims, although it seems equally unlikely that he in fact committed 4 murders during one day. But whatever happened, the henchmen were rejoicing Sosa's death like they had been the one sliding, and they would go on a dissing rampage, with rappers like 24 Left Eye and Ola Runt leading the charge and dropping numerous lyrics referencing the murder of Sosa and claiming to be smoking him. But unfortunately for Ola Runt, he wouldn't be rejoicing for too long, because in late 2020, he was snatched up by the FBI as part of their infamous Operation Phoenix, which targeted some of the worst violent offenders in the city, the same operation famously leading to the arrest of none other than Lil Woody, the infamous informant from the YSL Rico trial. As a result of this arrest, Ola would be out the streets for some time, but meanwhile, Carti was preparing to drop his second studio album, Whole Lotta Red, which he had been teasing and promising at this point for literally years. But this album would turn out to be nothing like Carti's previous work that he had become known for, like the self-titled mixtape and the debut album Die Lit, where he would mostly rap about girls, designer clothes and drugs on top of chill and floaty beats by producers like Pierre Bourne. This album would for the first time reveal to the world the real Carti, who was seemingly deeper in Atlanta gang politics than anyone could have possibly imagined.